Superman, the Man of Steel. What a beloved comic book character. I gotta say, he kinda sucks in the video game world. His most famous game is Superman The New Adventures, or more infamously known as Superman 64. With how bad or mid most of his games are, you would think video games are Superman's kryptonite. After Superman 64, developers Infogrames decided to try and take a crack at Superman with the game Superman Shadow of Apokolips. The game starts with Lex Luthor planning to take down Superman. Darkseid secretly helps Lex Luthor, while Lex Luthor is secretly trying to get other villains to take down Superman. It seems the weapons that Darkseid provided to Lex Luthor have some effect on Superman and is able to injure or even kill him. Maybe. I have no clue. This man's sneeze can destroy galaxies. Excuse me if I don't think a few things that go pew pew can kill this man. The game uses cel-shaded animation that copies the look of a comic book, which is neat. There's little to say about the levels of this game. They usually give you an area to move around and complete tasks like saving people or beating all the bad guys before being able to advance. You have these big areas to maneuver yourself around, but in the end, they're just big open spaces where you can interact with a handful of items. There's no incentive to explore these areas for items or collectibles, as I don't think there are any. When you start the level, you usually get instructions on what to do. Some of them have been confusing to me and I have no idea what I had to do. Luckily, by pressing the pause button, you get a bullet point list of exactly what you have to do. 95% of things you will be doing in this game is shown to you in the tutorial of the game. Speaking of, the first level of the game starts you off in the city of Metropolis with the tutorial of the game. Superman can fly, punch enemies, X-ray, use super breath, pick things up, and heat vision. It has most of Superman's most well-known abilities, but Superman sure does control a bit clunky. He is not the best at making quick turns, but you should rarely need to do them. You can use the C-stick to strafe, and I can't say it's the best. It feels clunky and unintuitive to have him strafe while in the air. They should have just left it as a camera control to have better control of him in the air, but pressing up and down on it does bring him up or down from the air. Just flying is a bit odd. Superman has 3 speeds: slow, medium, and fast. Sadly, when going from medium or fast, Superman goes in and out of this animation, which leaves him vulnerable. Now, this doesn't sound like much of a complaint, but that is because we have yet to talk about this game's combat. You get to use Superman's powers to fight enemies. You can do a basic punch combo, with the last 2 hits throwing the opponent away. This is odd since you will only be able to hit them with the last move some of the time and get stuck in an extra punch animation. At least you can stop the punch combo at any point. Besides hitting them with your fist, you can hit them with a pipe, which is usually a one-hit KO on the weakest enemies. And you can pick things up and throw them at people. They're interesting ways to take out enemies, but very slow and cumbersome compared to using his superpowers. His heat vision can be used to hit enemies, and it will automatically target an enemy nearby if you're facing their general direction. And pressing it twice quickly will shoot a ball of laser. Again, while interesting, it is slow and wasteful of your super meter. Every time you use a certain superpower, it will drain your meter, but it will replenish itself slowly, which is nice. The better superpowers to use is the spin move. You spin around and knock all the enemies away from you while doing damage to them. My favorite one is the Super Slam. It's the air version of this attack. Superman will dive down and when he hits the floor will cause an earthquake, hurting everyone around him or whoever he steps on. This was my main move to use since it has an area of effect and disrupts enemies around me. The combat is clunky. Enemies will bombard you with bullets and missiles, causing you to evade as much as you can and approach while they are between shots, but there is not a lot of time. With how slow you walk or run, and you have to go into this animation to go faster, just reaching them without getting shot once is difficult. Even if you can reach them in time, it's almost impossible not to get shot, because the enemies are always in groups. So if you go after one, the other 3 are going to gun you down. While shots don't do a lot of damage, that is a different story when multiple enemies are shooting you. They do have a dodge button, and if you press the button and a direction, Superman will quickly move in that direction. Again, this will make sense in a one-on-one fight, since you have to see the attack coming to be able to dodge it at all. You could instead fight from afar, but the only way to do so is by using laser beams, which depletes your super meter fast, or throwing things at enemies which go in this arc motion. Both of these methods are slow and only hit one enemy at a time. The easiest way around this for me was using the Super Slam, which would hit multiple enemies, disrupt them from hitting me, and was a quick move to do. It would scatter the enemies, allowing me to sometimes pick them off one by one. Most of Superman's moveset was not built to deal with multiple enemies at once, and it's very rare that you will get to face off one-on-one in this game. Even enemy types are very few and far between. The game has foot soldiers in this game, and there are 3 variations of the regular ones, the elite ones, and the elites with jetpacks. After that, we have machines or vehicles, which also have 3 variations: turrets, military tanks, and flying drones. It was funny fighting the tanks and turrets because if you stand on a specific position, they were not able to hit you. Also, the tanks had floaty physics, causing them to fly around from time to time, and somehow, in these goofy ass positions, have better shots at you. Enemies usually have one of 3 types of weapons or guns. There is the regular laser gun that does some damage, some bigger laser blasts that will do more damage, and the worst one of them all, the missiles that do a lot of damage and knock you down. Missiles were the worst thing to fight against in this game because of the knockdown effect. It would not have been a big deal except for the fact that when you're getting back up from the grounds, the enemies can still hurt you. You don't get to start blinking in and out of existence like in other video games and become invulnerable. Couple that with the fact that there are usually a tons of enemies, a single missile will also be accompanied by more laser shots. The vehicles and the elite soldiers were the ones that used the missiles. Fighting the jetpack elites were the worst enemies. They are floating in the air and you have to navigate to them. They also had missiles, meaning they're usually priority number 1 when killing, since they will disrupt you if you let them be. My best way of killing them was just by flying to them at top speed and ramming into them, as that will do damage to them and kill them, usually. You could also just whiz by them and still kill them somehow. The hitboxes were kinda funky sometimes. It doesn't help that there are no health packs in this game, or maybe there are. I did find this Superman symbol floating around once and I could not figure out what it was for. Health does regenerate over time, just like the super meter, but it is slow. You really only have to beat that one room of enemies and then just stand still until your health regenerates before continuing. This, however, does not make too much sense to do since the game has checkpoints between every room you clear. If you die in a room, you usually restart in that room. Rooms also do not take up much time to complete, making death not the worst thing in this game. There are a handful of boss fights in this game and they're okay. I actually enjoyed the last fight since it gave you a lot of freedom on how to defeat them. They gave you an opportunity to use any of your preferred movesets or weapons you wanted to fight with. Sadly, my worst experience with this game was with a boss fight, Livewire. To beat her, you have to make her wet. I know how much of a gaming god I am. I even got a doctor in it. And I thought this was gonna be easy peasy. In the first phase, you have to open the drawbridge under her to make her fall into the water. And it was pretty easy because I had these pillars blocking most of her attacks. The main issue comes in round 2, where you're both in the air and the way to defeat her was by blowing her. She will move around the map in sporadic ways and you have to blow her in the right position to make her wet. You have to keep up with her with these clunky controls while having these attacks homing after you that chase you around at different speeds. And you can't brute force your way through this part by just continuously blowing at her because she will break out of it and dash towards you with an attack. Even blowing felt inconsistent without being able to gauge how far it blows her away. I had to stay at this exact distance until she got to her position and I had enough time to situate myself just right and hope for the best. I will not blame another guy for wanting to skip this section, but boy, the satisfaction of finishing her off is so well worth it. there was one last part which is not too bad, where you go around this vault and melt these locks. It took a bit, because she will keep attacking you, so you cannot stand still, and positioning yourself with these controls is not easy. The fight is a 3-part battle, and if you die, you did have to start the boss fight from the very beginning. The game has a bit of replayability by allowing you to play any level you want again, and it does have cheat codes. It's been a while since I've seen cheat codes in the game. Nowadays, instead of cheat codes, you get microtransactions. Why give you something for free when some people are willing to pay for it? That aside, you can play the game with unlimited health for superpowers or play with a different skin. I can't say they're very enticing to me to replay the game. This type of thing makes sense when you don't have many games to play when you were younger, and games were $40 minimum back then. Nowadays, you have tons of games under $5 or even for free. And now, as an adult, I got disposable income, baby! Smaller issues I had with the game were the company logos at the beginning. The issue is not that they had more than other games, but the fact that they're unskippable. I understand copyright is a big deal, but it's a bit ridiculous having to see all these logos every time. Oh, and that one time I glitched out of bounds. That was fun for a minute or two. Then I had to exit the level because I had no way of getting back in. The worst part is, if you exit the level instead of dying, you have to start from the very beginning of the level. Fantastic. I was actually at the end of the level too. All in all, this game is clunky. The story is not very interesting and the ending is not satisfying at all. Felt like a filler cartoon episode more than anything else. It is nice being able to fly around freely, but the movement feels janky with not being able to kill Superman very well because of the little camera controls. Combat is also clunky, with combo moves feeling disjointed and most of the moves not being suitable for facing a group of people. The game feels like a bunch of things that will be in a Superman game put together, but nothing that will make them cohesive or work well. This game is probably better than Superman 64. I haven't played it. Let me know in the comments down below if I should. But this game being better than that one is not saying much. Hello and welcome to the end of the video. What do you think of this game? Or better, this video? Also, is there any game or franchise you wish for me to talk about? Put it in the comments down below. But, as always my lovely patients, I thank you so much for watching and tune in next time. Bye.